On April 2, 2025, former President Donald Trump stunned the world by announcing a sweeping 10% tariff on nearly all goods imported into the United States. The proclamation, delivered in a nationally televised address, marked one of the most dramatic shifts in American trade policy in decades. Trump declared the measure essential for restoring American greatness, vowing to put America first and reverse what he called years of unfair trade practices that had hollowed out the nation's manufacturing base. For his supporters, this was Liberation Day, a bold move to protect American jobs and industries from decades of foreign competition. Across the heartland, factory workers and small business owners celebrated, hopeful that the new tariffs would revive struggling towns and bring back lost industries. Many saw it as a long overdue stand against globalization and a chance to reclaim economic independence. But business leaders and economists immediately warned of higher prices for consumers and the risk of a global trade war. They cautioned that the tariffs could disrupt supply chains, raise costs for American families, and trigger retaliation from trading partners. Wall Street reacted with unease as markets tumbled and uncertainty spread through boardrooms and households alike. The announcement split the nation. Economic nationalists cheered, while critics feared economic chaos and global retaliation. Protests erupted in cities across the country, with passionate voices on both sides. The debate over tariffs quickly became a flashpoint in the broader struggle over America's economic future and national identity. America's allies in Europe and Asia condemned the move, calling it a betrayal of long-standing partnerships and a threat to the global trading system. Foreign leaders warned that the tariffs could spark a wave of protectionism, undermining decades of cooperation and economic growth. Diplomatic tensions rose as countries prepared their own countermeasures. Global supply chains built over decades were thrown into uncertainty as companies scrambled to adapt. Factories faced shortages of key components, retailers worried about empty shelves, and exporters braced for new barriers abroad. The ripple effects were felt from shipping ports to small-town main streets. Domestically, the policy bypassed Congress, raising constitutional questions about the limits of presidential power. Legal scholars debated whether such sweeping action could stand, and lawmakers from both parties demanded answers about the administration's authority to act unilaterally on trade. Republicans aligned with Trump praised the move, but many Democrats and free-market conservatives called it reckless and undemocratic. The halls of Congress echoed with heated arguments, as the nation's political divide deepened and the stakes grew ever higher. The stage was set for a fierce legal and political battle, one that would test the boundaries of executive authority in modern America. Lawsuits were filed within days, and pundits speculated about the long-term consequences for the presidency and the Constitution. The world watched as the United States plunged into a new era of economic confrontation, uncertain of what the future would hold for global trade, diplomacy, and the American people. Tariffs are taxes on imported goods, and they play a powerful role in shaping the global economy. They're designed to make foreign products more expensive, giving domestic industries an edge and encouraging consumers to buy American-made goods. Supporters argue tariffs protect American jobs and industries from unfair competition and foreign subsidies, helping to keep factories open and workers employed. But the costs are real. Higher prices for consumers at the checkout line, making everyday essentials less affordable for families. Businesses also face increased production costs, as many rely on imported materials and parts to keep their operations running smoothly. And there's always the risk of retaliation from trading partners, who may impose their own tariffs in response, escalating tensions. When tariffs hit, families pay more for everything from groceries to electronics, stretching household budgets even thinner. Meanwhile, American exporters face new barriers abroad, making it harder to sell their products in global markets and threatening their livelihoods. Retaliatory tariffs can devastate U.S. farmers, who depend on international buyers for crops and livestock, leaving them vulnerable to sudden market shifts. Manufacturers who rely on global markets and supply chains may see production slow, layoffs increase, and profits shrink. Trade wars disrupt supply chains, causing delays, shortages, and uncertainty for businesses and consumers alike. They also strain diplomatic relations, making it harder for countries to cooperate on other global challenges and hurting all sides involved. The debate is fierce. Protectionists see tariffs as essential for national strength and economic independence, while free traders argue that open markets drive innovation, lower prices, and prosperity for all. Ultimately, tariffs are a blunt tool, one that can backfire, raising costs, sparking global conflict, and creating uncertainty for everyone. The real challenge is finding the right balance between economic security and the many benefits of global trade so that growth and opportunity are shared. The stakes couldn't be higher for American families, businesses, and the world economy, making trade policy a double-edged sword that affects us all. To bypass Congress, the Trump administration invoked the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA. Historically used for targeted sanctions, IEPA was never meant to rewrite the nation's entire tariff schedule. The administration argued that America's massive trade deficit was an extraordinary threat, justifying emergency action. Critics, including legal scholars and former officials, called this a dangerous stretch. IEPA was for true crises, not long-term economic policy. If a trade deficit is an emergency, they warned, any problem could be used to justify sweeping executive action. The Constitution gives Congress, not the President, the power to regulate trade and impose tariffs. The legal showdown was set. Could the President use emergency powers to reshape the economy by decree? The answer would define the limits of executive authority for years to come. Opposition to the tariffs was immediate and broad. Major business groups, trade associations, and state governments joined forces to challenge the policy in court. They argued the tariffs would devastate local economies, raise consumer prices, and bypass Congress's constitutional authority. States warned of harm to ports, farmers, and workers, while businesses feared billions in losses from disrupted supply chains. The coalition's legal case was clear. Only Congress can levy tariffs and regulate foreign commerce. They demanded an injunction to halt the tariffs, framing the issue as both an economic and constitutional crisis. The sheer diversity of plaintiffs, from manufacturers to farmers to state governments, underscored the far-reaching impact. The fate of America's trade agenda would be decided not in the White House but in the courts. A historic legal battle was underway. The legal fight began in the U.S. Court of International Trade, a specialized court tasked with resolving complex disputes over international trade laws and presidential authority. In a swift and decisive ruling, the court determined that the president had overstepped his authority, setting off a chain reaction throughout the legal system. The judges found that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, was never meant to justify sweeping economy-wide tariffs that could disrupt entire industries. The case quickly moved up to the federal circuit, the next level in the federal judiciary, where the stakes grew even higher. There, a panel of appellate judges pressed government attorneys, challenging the administration's claim to nearly limitless emergency powers under IEPA. In a dramatic escalation that stunned both allies and adversaries, the White House announced a sweeping 50% tariff on all Indian goods entering the U.S. The move sent shockwaves through global markets, triggering panic on trading floors and causing financial indices to plummet overnight. Critics across the political spectrum saw this as undeniable proof of unchecked executive power, an alarming precedent for future administrations. They argued that tariffs were being imposed on a whim, without careful analysis or sound economic policy, leaving businesses and consumers in uncertainty. With conflicting lower court rulings, mounting legal briefs, and billions of dollars at stake for American companies and workers, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case. The central question before the justices was clear. Can the president invoke IEPA to unilaterally impose broad tariffs for economic reasons, or does this power have limits set by Congress? As the nation watched and waited, the Supreme Court prepared to deliver a verdict that would shape the future of American governance and the balance of power for generations to come. In a landmark decision, the Supreme Court struck down the Trump tariffs, ruling the president had exceeded his authority. The court declared that a trade deficit is not an extraordinary threat, justifying emergency powers under IEPA. Only Congress, the justices affirmed, can fundamentally reshape American trade policy. The ruling invalidated both the 10% baseline tariff and the 50% tariff on Indian goods. Legal scholars hailed the decision as a vital check on executive power and a reaffirmation of constitutional norms. For Trump and his allies, it was a stinging defeat. For businesses and states, a major victory. The court didn't rule on the merits of tariffs, but on the process, restoring the balance of power between Congress and the president. The era of tariff by decree was over. The Constitution had spoken. The Supreme Court's decision brought immediate relief to American consumers and businesses. Price hikes on everyday goods were averted, and retailers could plan without fear of sudden tariffs. Manufacturers relying on global supply chains avoided crippling cost increases. Retaliatory tariffs from other countries were rolled back, reopening vital export markets for U.S. farmers. The ruling eased global tensions, restoring faith in the rules-based trading system. Importers expected refunds for tariffs already paid, providing a financial boost. International partners welcomed the decision as a return to stability and predictability. The verdict triggered a broad economic and diplomatic recalibration, calming markets and restoring order. The ripple effects were felt worldwide. The Supreme Court's ruling reshaped American trade policy, closing the door on executive overreach. Future tariff changes must now come from Congress, not the White House. The decision reinforced the separation of powers, returning trade debates to the legislative arena. Lawmakers now face the challenge of addressing trade imbalances and supporting American industries through consensus and legislation. Businesses and global partners can expect greater stability, as policy will be shaped by public debate, not unilateral action. The ruling doesn't end the debate between protectionism and free trade, but ensures it happens within the constitutional framework. The era of tariff by decree is over. The era of tariff by debate has begun. America's trade future will be decided in Congress, as the founders intended.